Hello everybody, Kevin Shortell with Note School here. I have a short video today for you on lien priority. This is a very important topic for both real estate investors and of course note investors. I've seen some people buy notes on properties and not fully understand the other liens and how they can dramatically influence their position. On the other hand, I've also seen people pass up opportunities in the note business because they didn't understand that those other liens could voluntarily be removed and often are. So I want to go through the basics with you on how these liens can work and how they can affect your property. We can break liens down into two different categories, voluntary and involuntary. Voluntary liens are things like mortgages, right? Anytime you pledge your property as collateral for a loan typically, right? When you're looking to buy a property, you have to sign a note to pay it back, and you have to sign a note that says, I'm pledging the property as collateral because if I don't pay on the note, then you have the right to foreclose. Now that mortgage can be in first position. Then of course, sometimes when people get equity in property, they want to go ahead and get a second mortgage on the property to borrow additional money. And some people also do that, by the way, in the form of a HELOC, right? A home equity line of credit. Those would all be examples of voluntary liens that homeowners place on their properties in return, typically for getting cash or lines of credit. Now, involuntary liens are things like this: property taxes. If someone fails to pay their property taxes, the taxing authority, typically going to be a county or municipality, is going to put a lien, a claim on that property. Now, the difference is property taxes in every state in the United States have what they call super lien status. So those liens jump to the front of the line. They jump in front of first mortgages. So it's something we always have to be sensitive to when we look at purchasing a note. Secondly is your homeowner associations or condo owner associations. These type of liens, once again, in some states, do have super lien status. So property taxes in every state have super lien status. They jump to the front of the line, meaning they get paid first. But some states have now allowed HOAs and COAs to jump to the front of the line as well and give them potential foreclosing power, which is going to be significant for us as a note investor. Thirdly, utility bills. If somebody doesn't pay their utility bills, cities often can cut power to properties, and other places they can't. They can go ahead and assess ongoing fines and even penalties on properties, and sometimes that means snow removal. They'll charge on a regular basis, cleaning and cutting the lawn, tree removal, so a lot of different services on that property. And you know what? In some places, same thing. Those utility liens can jump in front of the first mortgage holder, so we have to be sensitive to that. Now, typically, utility liens do not have the right to foreclose. Okay, so property taxes jump to the front and have the right to foreclose in every state. HOAs and CNOAs jump to the front of the line, may have the right to foreclose, depending upon, again, the state law. Utility generally jump ahead, meaning they're going to have to get paid first before something like a foreclosure could happen, but they are typically not given the right to foreclose from that position. All of those, however, we have to be sensitive to and understand, and going as a part of our due diligence in buying a note. Next, we have judgments. Judgments are any kind of court action, civil court. That could be, oh heck, it could be some kind of a lawsuit. It could be child support payments, any kind of legal action that was taken on the individual homeowner, and the person took them to court, they got a judgment, and to try to attempt to collect on the judgment, they put a lien on the property. Now, judgments will typically fall back behind us, and they don't have the right to jump to the front of the line, so they may or may not have a big impact upon us when we buy a first position mortgage. Mechanics liens: if you don't pay a contractor to do work on a property, they can file a lien on the property. In fact, what a lot of people don't know is you may have paid the contractor, but the contractor didn't pay the subcontractor, and the subcontractor can actually put a lien on your property. Of course, that's preventable, but once again, like a judgment, those type of liens are going to fall behind a first position mortgage and are not going to have the ability to foreclose from that position. A lot of people are confused on this one. Federal and state tax liens. Federal and state tax liens are generally going to be removed when asked. They're generally going to be removed from the property. But there's a big difference between the federal government or state government removing a lien from the property than forgiving the lien. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. And by the way, the IRS liens and the state tax liens, they do fall behind us. Now, the federal government, if they insist, if they want, they can foreclose. But as a note holder, you're pretty safe because they have to pay you off in full. And as goes with the states. The states typically will not foreclose on these properties. What they will instead do is remove that because they have the power, the state and the federal governments, they have the power to go after other assets and other resources, including pay from somebody's job if they so choose to. So those are your types of liens, and then the liens are given certain priorities as we've been talking about. So the general rule in lien priority throughout the United States is based upon Old English law, and it says essentially this: first in time, first in right. First in time, first in right means whoever won the race to the courthouse, and that's literally what they used to call it, whoever got down there to file the claim first had the first right. And that also meant if there was a foreclosure, something like that, the property was sold through a forced sale, whoever filed first got paid first. And then depending upon the money left after that sale, all the other lien holders would be paid off in priority of when they filed in time. Now, as our laws have changed and the industry have changed, there are now state law exemptions to the first in time, first in right, such as the homeowner associations that we saw, such as the utility liens that can be placed upon properties. Those are all specific state exemptions that change this first in time, first in right. And that's what gives an HOA in certain states the right to jump in front of the line. And that's what gives utilities in other states the right to do the same thing. And again, that's important to us because this determines how foreclosure funds are going to be distributed. So if we're buying, especially a non-performing note on a vacant property, very important that we understand what liens are on there, what power and strength do they have. In other words, do they have the ability to foreclose from their position? And if they do, how does that affect our first position mortgage? Well, let's take a look at that example. Let's say we have a property here that has $1,000 property tax lien on it. It also has a first mortgage. So the homeowner of this property borrowed at some point in time $100,000 or more, and that's what the balance is on that first mortgage now. And somewhere along the line, they didn't pay their property taxes in the amount of $1,000. And let's say, furthermore, they have taken a second mortgage out for $15,000. So they got a home equity loan for $15,000, and they also have a $3,000 judgment on that property. Okay, so that's the scenario. There's property tax lien, first position lien, a $15,000 second mortgage, and a $3,000 judgment. All right, if this property is foreclosed upon, what happens at the sale? Well, let's say at the foreclosure sale, this property sells for $110,000. Okay, so maybe it's worth more than that, and somebody's looking for a deal at the foreclosure auction, and the property sold for $110,000. The first thing they'll do out of the proceeds is pay the property tax liens. That's the most senior lien. Now, by the way, there are going to be county costs in running the sale that technically come out first, but those are nominal, so I'm going to skip that for this example. So the first thing that's paid on this property in this outline here would be the property tax liens. Why? Because they jump. It doesn't matter that maybe the first mortgage was there first and they didn't pay their property taxes 5 years later. It doesn't matter. Those property tax liens jump to the front of the line because of state laws that give that super lien priority. So that's going to leave us with $109,000 left out of the proceeds of the sale. So out of the $109,000 that remains, the next lien holder gets paid. The next lien holder's owed $100,000, so that gets paid off, and that leaves $9,000 from the sale. The $9,000 would go to the next lien holder, and that leaves us with $0, and then the other $3,000 judgment is erased as well. Okay, so all of these liens through the foreclosure process are removed from the property. That's what foreclosure does. It cleanses the title to the property. It cleanses the deed to the property. Now, the reality is the second mortgage holder here is still owed $6,000. They were owed $15,000. They only got $9,000. So they're still owed $6,000 bucks. And of course, the judgment didn't get anything, so they're still owed $3,000. Now there's an important lesson there, which is this: foreclosure sales eliminate the liens, not the debt. Foreclosure sales eliminate the liens, not the debt. So it eliminates the liens from the property. The debt instruments are still there, the ones that are still owed money. So what could happen? Well, once again, depending upon state law, that second mortgage holder who still owed the $6,000 could go to court and file for a deficiency judgment, meaning they're still out of deficit. They were owed $15,000 as a secured lender, and they only got $9,000. So there's a $6,000 deficit that they can go after in civil court, and that's called a deficiency judgment. So if they are awarded that deficiency judgment and that's all filed properly, they can pursue that other $6,000 in debt. Now, the $3,000 judgment who didn't get anything, same thing. They can pursue their judgment, since they've already won a judgment. They can pursue their judgments different ways, and that depends, right, on the state. Once again, can they go after wages? Can they freeze accounts? Can they attach it to other real estate? In fact, in some states, they can attach it to real estate years later. In other words, maybe somebody went through this foreclosure and the second lien holder decided not to file a deficiency judgment because they didn't want to go chasing that money, feeling they would never get it. And that $3,000 judgment's still sitting out there. Well, now this person, maybe 4 or 5 years later, buys another piece of real estate, and what happens? That old $3,000 judgment shows up on that property. And that can happen as well. So there are state laws that influence these items as well. The other final thing that you can do with some of these liens is negotiate them down. And that's another important thing to know about. If you're buying a non-performing note in first position and there are other liens, you want to know, can I have these voluntarily removed? Are there forms that I fill out in which to do that? And can I negotiate to pay them off at a lower amount? Here's an interesting case study for you. There was a fine on this property with a note that was owned in Tampa, Florida. And you can see that code enforcement here had assessed fines on a regular basis, obviously, for $24,720 on this property. Code enforcement assessed the fine for almost $25,000. What did they end up settling for? $1,000 and a $10 release cost. So they negotiated all of that away. And a lot of times the cities will look at this. I'm not saying all the time, but many cities will look at this. And if you are showing that you are a part of the solution, you're here to help, you're here to get that property working again. By working, I mean, you're going to get renovated, you're going to put tenants in there, you're going to sell it to a consumer, and they're going to be paying property taxes. Guess what? It's in the city's best interest to do that and to look at that with you. So when you're negotiating your way through some of these liens, that's the way you do it. You show you are not a part of the problem, you are a part of the solution. So hope you enjoyed this short little video on liens priorities, and also how it affects our foreclosure positions. Talk to you next time.